So good to see all of you. It's, I think, 122 degrees outside, literally. And I just want to say thank you. Love you guys too. Thank you. And thank you to the Dream City family. It's just so amazing to be able to partner like this every single month. I know that this Freedom Square was kind of close to the other one. And we said, hey, let's try it out on a Wednesday. So just so honored to be able to continue to do this. And thank you to the Barnetts and the whole team here. And please do consider supporting the important work that Dream City is doing in the community. And it allows us to do this every single month. And so I just want to thank the entire Dream City family again. It's absolutely terrific and tremendous. And now I'm going to show you the national impact that this has already made. So right now, this week, we are starting a new initiative at Turning Point USA that really started in this room. And you know, we talked a lot, the Barnetts and I, about the need to get the church to stand up for these issues in this time. Because if the church does not stand up, then we're going to have a nation and a country that is unrecognizable. So at Turning Point USA and Dream City, we think big, right? We try to think in a national scale. And so this week, we have started officially Turning Point Faith, where we have added 28 people on staff that are going to be bringing this model of Freedom Square to hundreds and hopefully eventually thousands of churches across the country. And I think our Turning Point Faith staff, they're here somewhere. I don't know where they are, but they're all the way in the back, there. And those are some amazing freedom fighters. And so that's happening right now this week. And last week, I think it was last week, just time is, I'll tell you, we've had a very long year this month, okay? It's been something. We have officially expanded this idea to Steve Smotherman's church in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they are now going to be meeting monthly for Freedom Square as well. So this movement is growing, and we're just so thrilled to say that this has been the beginning of something very special. And so I want to give some local updates, because that's really what makes this unique, of what's happening in the community around us. And then we are going to have a conversation with my pastor, Rob McCoy, who's the co-chair of Turning Point Faith. And we're going to talk about this idea of the looming lockdown towards the church. The question that we are going to answer tonight is, should the church lock down again when they try to usher in these lockdowns? I think we have that answer, but if only every pastor in the country had that same sort of boldness. So we're going to explore that together. So I first just want to say thank you for all of you that came to our Turning Point Action event with President Trump I think it was 2 weeks ago. Thank you guys that attended that. And that was a lot of fun and definitely made some national news. So, okay, I want to go through a couple things that are happening locally, some dates and times, because a lot of you say, Charlie, what can I do? What can I do? We always want to give you options if you want to impact your local community, because there's a lot of stuff happening. Number one, did you guys hear about this Scottsdale consent form? Some of you? Okay, so I am a resident of Scottsdale, and they are going to hear from me very soon on this. The Scottsdale Unified School District, they say mistakenly, sent out a form saying that they need biometric information from every single student. They want to know any illegal or antisocial tendencies of parents. And they also want to know personal family history to see if things are not being taught correctly in the home, that the school might remedy it. It's the Scottsdale Unified School District. Now, they said it was a mistake, but I think there needs to be some explanation from the Scottsdale Unified School District of what is going on there. So, if they decide to host in-person school district meetings, which they have not yet decided, they are having a meeting on August 24th. I will be there, whether online or in person, and I would love us to show up with compassion and hopefully in a magnanimous type way, but also filled with truth, to ask some questions. First of all, You're never going to mask our children again. I don't care if it's the Delta, the Lambda, the Zelda variant. You're not putting a mask on our kids again. That's not going to happen. And also, you're not going to force the vaccine on high school kids at the Scottsdale Unified School District. It's not going to happen. Now, there's so much happening in the country, but I want to really focus what's happening in these trends here. Many of you have heard that New York City has now instituted vaccine passports. You are not allowed to go to restaurants or theaters or other areas if you're not able to show proof of identification. So at least now we can say the discussion around voter ID is over, right? No longer can they say that it's wrong. Am I right, Matt? That they can no longer say that they can't show voter ID. So at least that discussion is over. But this is a very beyond troubling trend. And unfortunately, this is happening here in Arizona as well. Not through government leaders, but 2 restaurants in this local area that we know of are saying that they will not serve you if you do not have the vaccine. And the 2 restaurants, Oven and Vine and F&B, I think are making a big mistake because I believe that it is not biblical or scriptural or filled with the Spirit of Christ to discriminate against people because they decided not to take an experimental vaccine. We must stand against this sort of discrimination. And the fact that it's coming here to Arizona is very troubling. And so I just think mentioning it is very important. I'm not saying that boycott or whatever, but I do think that this deserves to be challenged. Maybe even a thoughtful letter, email saying, hey, why are you instituting this type of policy? What if all of a sudden, what if people have legitimate reasons not to take this? What if they have legitimate concerns and skepticism? Are you gonna have a big sign that is outside of the restaurant that says, unvaccinated need not apply? You see, in our nation, we turn the page from that kind of dark moment of segregation, of othering. But now we are asking for intimate medical information of whether or not you are gonna be served food at certain restaurants in the Scottsdale area. I think this is a great opportunity for us to educate and course correct. I think it's a great opportunity for us to say, you know what, this is not right. In the scripture it says for us to love what is good and hate what is evil. This is not something that we should tolerate. And I can give you a lot of examples of this. First of all, medical information is not restaurants' business. Let's just be very clear, okay? We should not be screening for your entire medical history. Number 2, this is not in any way going to heal or bring the country or the nation together. By definition, it's discrimination. And some people say, well, Charlie, isn't this against the law? Unfortunately, the courts have said that you are able to now, and it's not totally defined yet, you're able to kind of have this kind of this process and this sort of rule, I guess you could say. Let me tell you my concern. And I'm going to kind of go into some of the national trends and how this comes. They're almost begging for a confrontation right now. I don't quite know what is going to slow these people down. Now, if you got the vaccine, I've never ever said a negative thing. Some of my closest family members have. Seriously, and you know what? I know some people that have given me really good reasons. They say, you know what? I'm over the age of 70. I know the costs and benefits. I'm really worried about the virus, and this has really let me live my life again. I say, you know what? That's what medical decisions are for. You making your own informed decision. I'm not going to say that's a bad decision or not. That's the whole idea of personalization and customized choice. However, it's almost as if they're trying to provoke a response, as if they almost want the conflict, that they're saying that you can't go to certain segments of society. So I just want to caution all of us that we cannot lose one of the fruits of the Spirit in how we talk about this, even how we protest about this, and how we do activism about this, which is self-control. This is a very emotional issue. It is for me. I can tell you right now. As you know, I've decided not to get the vaccine. I get very worked up about this type of issue. But I also don't want to all of a sudden become an ambassador where we might win the argument, but we lose the entire debate because we just get so kind of out of control on this. And I also don't want to give people that wish to have these mandates excuses if we are not in control of how we talk about this and how we demonstrate about this. If they're begging for a fight, let's not give them one. If they're begging for this kind of confrontation, let's not give them. And we don't know that's necessarily the case, but when all of a sudden you're starting to hear people on TV say that, quote, we can't trust the unvaccinated. That's a doctor who went on CNN, go figure. When you have Francis Collins, the head of NIH, National Institute of Health, and this is a real thing, he has come out and he has said, parents, you need to wear masks around your children at home. That's the government's guidance, where they say that you must mask up around your own children at home. It's almost like they want us to get overreacted to that. Maybe not, maybe they just think that's perfectly rational and calm. So my one message to you guys is let's not take the bait as far as getting overcharged. We must contest these things, don't get me wrong. But also, what if they are wanting to try to provoke something to justify an even bigger power grab on top of it? Does that make sense? This is an opportunity for us to win the argument, because I actually think 80 million people have decided not to get the vaccine, but I think 300 million people agree that you should not be forced to get the vaccine against your will, regardless of whether or not you have gotten the vaccine. So, it says in Romans 12:2, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world. I love that word pattern, don't you? Because it feels as if things are working in a pattern right now. That word in Greek, pattern, you have to understand the context of when Paul wrote this. The word Greek, it means things that are repeating, that are over-cascading, overwhelming. It kind of feels that way, doesn't it? So this is a test of faith for a lot of us. It's an opportunity for us to say, you know what? Everyone around me says to do something, but I know that's not what I should do, and I'm going to resist from that. And so here's the trend that we're seeing right now, is that another round of lockdowns are coming. They are. It saddens me to say that, because I believe the lockdowns from last spring that went on for 3 months and 6 months was one of the worst mistakes that has been done in my lifetime in modern American history. And we have to now tell that story, that it was when you have lost more young people to suicide in the last 18 months than from the virus, we should call time out. When you have lost 40% of small businesses, we should say time out. When we now know how the virus operates, we are now able to use our own agency, our own ability to make decisions and other therapeutics and treatments. What if the cure ends up being worse than the disease? What if we're trying to kill a mouse with a Tomahawk missile? What if we defeat and crush the virus, but we lose the country? And so this is an opportunity. I think right now we're going to talk about this. Rob and I are going to explore it, because Rob is from California, and they're not as enlightened as those of us that are in Arizona, no offense, Rob, in government, where they will push this as far as they can unless we tell them otherwise. Now, I do want to say, the state legislature and the governor here in Arizona did do some very good things to ban vaccine passports, to ban mandatory vaccinations, and they have said the right things recently, saying that they are not going to lock down the state again. This is where all of us need to get involved and say, you know what? We are not going to allow Arizona to go through another round of lockdowns. When I go to these events and people come up to me and say, Charlie, you know, I own a gym. I owned a gym, and I wasn't able to survive because of this last lockdown. That's where we're all of a sudden imposing these sorts of measures. And then for what? Unfortunately, I believe that these round of lockdowns is trying to usher in some other form of an agenda that is unspecified, that is it's not consistent with the American way of life. So this is why when you look around, these kind of public displays of support, continuing showing up, continuing doing these things matters so much. Remember, the sovereign in this country is not we the government, it's we the people. And we still have this power that is vested in us. And so, to kind of summarize this all together, there are a lot of negative trends that are happening nationally. But I could tell you right now, here in Arizona, I'm very concerned about this kind of vaccine can't eat at these restaurants. I think that needs to be challenged. But the reason we keep on doing this type of focus on these freedom squares that we are, is that since we have started these freedom squares, I'm getting text messages from state legislators and state senators saying, man, I'm hearing from so many people that are showing up to this Freedom Square thing. Like, we're going to pass this bill or not pass this. This is the grassroots, everybody. This is the church reawakening and taking a stand in the public square. And so in the next 30 days, my call to action is this for you guys. Show up to a school board meeting, any school board meeting, maybe the Scottsdale Unified one, which is definitely going to be number one on my list. Also, be aware and be alert about the coming lockdowns. Go and support the business owners here and even regionally, because New Mexico is not too far from here, and boy, are they trying to lock down very soon, and say, we are going to support the business owners and the pastors that refuse to lock down again. This is a major issue. And we are also, and finally, we are also going to inform as many people as we possibly can at the reality of what we're dealing with. 1,800 people die every single day from heart disease. 1,600 die every single day from cancer. Right around 330 die from the virus, and we don't even know how specific those numbers are. I am not willing to lose the country if we just crush the virus. Liberty is only preserved if we do something about it. And every single one of you play an active role in that. That's a beautiful segue with someone who has been fighting for liberty when it really has been difficult. Please join me in welcoming Pastor Rob McCoy, co-chair of Turning Point Faith, and pastor of Calvary Chapel Godspeak. Give him a round of applause for that kind of a change. That was really impressive. That's like a NASCAR pit crew right there. It's like in and out, like whoa. If I ever race in the Le Mans, I'm taking you with. Jeez, oh my goodness. Ford versus Ferrari. Rob, welcome.
Thank you, Charlie.
So Rob, last year, you were faced with a test where California locked down and many of the other churches in your local area decided to comply. You opened up right near Easter and came under massive ridicule and backlash. Let's talk about just the positives first, and we can go back. Has your church flourished or succeeded? Has it crippled? Has it gotten smaller? What has happened since you decided to take that stand?
Let's see, we've baptized more people in 6 months than the attendance of the church was 6 months ago. We've grown now more than 400%. We had Larry Elder come and speak, a gubernatorial candidate.
And I do want to say, we take no stances on any elections or politics at Turning Point USA or Turning Point.
I understand that, and I didn't at the church either. The point is, only an educated electorate can make decisions, so we invite everyone. So he came out, and the place was packed to standing room only, and we had to turn folks away because of fire codes. And we can't fit any more services, so I'm going to see if Luke wants to build us a church.
So Rob, talk about that moment when you decided to open up. That was May of last year?
Yeah. Can I add this, Charlie, real quick? Having the privilege to meet Tommy and Luke, Pastor Tommy and Pastor Luke, and seeing this fellowship, you know, you and I met, and I was a pastor of a small church. These two guys are in the book of Who's Who. I'm in the book of Who's He. And when you guys put the engine on this Freedom Square and gave Charlie this opportunity, I just want to say thank you to all of you, because you have made this significantly possible, and it comes with the leadership of this fellowship. God bless you guys. Yeah. So Charlie asked me to come out to this event, and I sat in one of those seats, not in the front row. They put me somewhere over there. No, I'm kidding. No, but I sat and I listened and I watched as your entire congregation not only went through these teachings, but there was application to apply them at your local jurisdictions, whether it be the school board or the city council. I was so moved by that, saw what occurred, that I went back to our church and we did the same thing. And now all the mama bears are calling for Freedom of Information Act from our school boards, and they're lighting it up. God bless you guys.
And so what's happening here is starting this organic movement. And I'm getting calls from pastors, oh, Charlie, we're doing our own Freedom Square. I'm like, where are you? Spokane, Washington. I'm like, oh, really? This is, and now with the new people that we're hiring at Turning Point Faith, we're going to organize it. But this is the drumbeat, the center of it all. It really is the beginning stages of a fulfillment of a vision. So, Rob, talk about that moment, because talk about how you weighed the costs and the benefits, where you talked with your wife and you said, look, we could go to jail if we do this.
Yeah, so at the time, being the pastor of the church, I was also a city councilman. I just finished my term as the mayor of the city. And I had been elected, and I was coming up for re-election in November. I don't know if you ever heard of the Borderline shooting. 12 of our young people were killed in the country western dance hall. 2 of them were from my congregation. I was the mayor pro tem during the shooting, and then 2 weeks later, I became mayor. I love my city. I officiated those services. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for that community. My heart was broken. We had a memorial dedicated to him 1 year from that day. I was a good mayor. They were going to re-elect me, and I had a chance to minister to countless people. And we come into the lockdown, and the governor of our state, Governor Mussolini, says, did I spell that wrong? I'm sorry. He said, as we were coming into the Holy Week, that the church was non-essential. Our abortion clinics were essential. You could rip apart a child in its mother's womb and flush the parts into the sewage systems of the state. The cannabis distributors were essential. Liquor stores were essential, but the church wasn't. I said, we didn't know the severity of the virus. We said, what if we follow CDC standards? No, you're not essential. I thought, I'm not going to contend right now with all those that you say are essential, but I do know this: none of them are covered by the First Amendment. So we decided that we were going to have communion on the first Sunday, a sacrament in the Christian church, for our Holy Week, Palm Sunday. That was April 3rd, was a Saturday. We're getting ready to do communion on the 4th, and it was as though all hell broke loose. I mean, the word got out to England. People were sending me clips in the newspaper, and we didn't do a press release. I don't even know what one is. And all this stuff started happening. I thought, this is insane. And I called the city manager, and I really appreciate him, and I love the folks I serve on the city council. I said, look, you guys are going to have enough because the state wants to usurp the local autonomy. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm resigning from my seat because I know the council members are going to censure me, and I swore to defend that Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I'm making a stand, and I'm out. I worked hard to get that seat, and I love my city, and I gave it up. And as I did that, we went into Palm Sunday, and we had communion, a sanctuary that holds 400, 450 people. We had 10 chairs, and they were separated. And it took 4 hours to do communion. We followed everything. And the press descended on us, but to their credit, they reported that it was the cleanest place in not only Ventura County, probably the state of California. And protesters and the whole like, but we did communion. And as we did that, all of a sudden people started saying, and I thought to myself this: Governor, you said the church isn't essential. And the body and blood of Christ and communion, which is a sacrament, is essential. I was thinking about my brothers and sisters in Catholic faith, literal body and blood of Christ, and you're not letting your congregants come. I couldn't grasp that. And then I thought about this. I've been married to my wife, Michelle, for 31 years. You're going to find this a little crass, but bear with me. No, not that, but what I'm about to say. Now, I'm going to be 57 next week. I was a swimmer, All-American. I know it's hard to believe I look more like a buoy now, but I still got some fight in me. If you tell me my wife is non-essential, you'll be picking up your teeth with your broken arm. Now you're all going, oh. As shepherds of the bride of Christ, where are you? Meaning pastors across the country who bowed to tyranny and forbade the people, even following CDC standards, to allow them to declare the church non-essential. I can't live with that. None of us should be able to tolerate that, period.
And so, Rob, we started to see more and more pastors start to stand up, and we started to see this kind of trend grow. And a year ago, it would have been unthinkable that the current governor of California would be in a statistical tie for a recall and that the person that is the highest, again, taking no opinion on the candidates, the next person that might fill it is a talk show host, conservative Larry Elder. So, Rob, are people starting to rise up in California?
I think so. I think so. Where our election system there is a little funky. I'll leave it at that. But I'll say this to you, Charlie, you're an instigator. Because, yeah, amen to that, but in a good way. So we had survived the Holy Week thing, and then most of the churches were still kind of observing it, and we'd let people come in, we wouldn't stop them, and we were now realizing after the riots in Los Angeles, where 75% of the businesses that were burned and looted were Jewish owned and targeted, and the governor embraced it, and it's, shoulder to shoulder, no masks, no social distancing. At that point, I said, we're opening this Sunday. And then Jack Hibbs said, let's wait till Pentecost Sunday. I was a little irritated, but you were the one who said, let's get a lawsuit. That's like the farmer wanting breakfast and he wants ham and eggs, and for the pig it's a sacrifice, and for the chicken it's an offering. I was the pig. No, but we decided we were going to contest it, and we were going to open on May 31st, and we did. We opened up wide, and not a single case of COVID, not one. And we were going to kill grandma and the super spreaders, not one case of COVID. We come into August, middle, almost late August, still not a case of COVID. And 3 of the 5 supervisors didn't want me to run for supervisor or ever have a elected office because they knew we were gaining momentum. And they voted to get an attorney to get a restraining order, emergency restraining order, to shutter the church. And they found a political and predictive judge to enforce it. And so they gave us a restraining order, and they named me and 1,000 congregants, whether congregants or visitors, and with a fine attached to it. And that citation, if you have an NROTC scholarship, you lose it. If you have a concealed carry permit in California, you lose it. I mean, this is serious. You're a government employee, you have a problem. This is serious. And so now we're coming up to the rubber meets the road, and Charlie's like, we need a lawsuit. And I'm like, I just want a drink with an umbrella on a beach somewhere. He's like 27, 28, 27. I'm almost 57. All right, my tank's running out. So I called our attorney, and it was Saturday before the Sunday deal. And I had a terrible pain in my shoulder. And I tried to get some vacation. I couldn't process it, and all these things were happening. And I have to go back down to our home in Southern California from where we were vacationing in Northern California, my in-laws' house. My son-in-law's with me. We're at the airport. I called the attorney, and I said, his name's Bob. I said, Bob, tell me, if I violate this restraining order, tell me everything I can lose. And he says, well, you lose your house, you'll lose a church, you'll get audited, you'll get death threats. He starts going down the list. And I'm, my chest is tight. I said, is there anything else? He goes, yeah, matter of fact, there is. And he lists some more things. And I'm hyperventilating. And my shoulder, I've never had pain like that. And I said, is there anything else? And he lists like 2 other things. I'm like, dude, is there anything else? And he goes, I think that's about it. And it's a legal pad of consequences, and they're all severe. And I said, Bob, I know you can't counsel me to break the law, but I will be breaking the law tomorrow. Will you defend me? And he said, yes. I said, I just need permission from a few places, but I'm making the decision personally, but I'm not going to do it without counting the cost for those who will be involved. I called my wife. I said, honey, this is what we can lose, and I went down the list. And she said, I'd rather be a widow than be married to a coward. I told my kids, all 5 of them walk with the Lord, and my son-in-laws, my 2 son-in-laws are great guys. And they said, that's why we're on board. Let's do this. I told my staff, they're like, hello, we're in. Not one person peeled off. But then I had to go to the elders, 15 elders. I said, fellas, I've gotten permission from my wife, from my kids, from the staff, but I'm coming to you with a different proposition. Tomorrow, I'm going to break the law. And if you don't want me to, then you need to accept my letter of resignation tonight. And I said, I'm not going to be hurt if you ask me to resign, because I know you have a fiduciary responsibility, but you're not cowards and you signed up for this. Every single one of them said, we're in. Last one was our landlord. Guy in Texas, a friend of mine. He wanted to buy us a church, and I don't want to own property because I'm very political. I said I'd lease it from him, and he said, okay. And I offered him the square foot amount, and he goes, that's low. I go, you were going to give it to me. Anyways, I call him up, and I said, they're going to take your building. There's a lot of things they can do to you. He said, we gave that to the Lord a long time ago. You go kick there, and then I'll leave that alone. I share all that to tell you this. Courage isn't the absence of fear. We're all scared. Everyone has to make a decision. It's going to cost you something. But I learned how to overcome the fear. And listen very carefully. Anything given to the Lord first will never be lost. And here's the thing that set me free. When I looked at that yellow legal pad, and I counted the cost, and I said, none of that matters more to me than liberty for my children and my grandchildren. Yeah. And when I had made that decision in the airport with the attorney, you know what happened? I've never experienced this in my whole life. Now, this is a church of great faith. I would attend here if I would have lived here. My shoulder pain, gone. It's gone. When you count and you realize they can have everything, when you've surrendered it, there's nothing that they can take from you. And you are free. You're free. Fight. Stand.
And Rob, you've seen your church grow and flourish ever since. So some Christians are out there and some pastors are out there and they say, Rob, nice story, but you are in violation of Romans 13. You need to submit to your government authorities. It's not the Christian's role to do this. We're on the live stream right now, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here that come to Freedom Square, and you go to other churches as well, and you have other pastors that you know. Rob, why is that interpretation not correct, and why you were being obedient to the Lord and also the Scriptures?
Romans 13 is a significant passage because all of you in this room who love this country and this unprecedented freedom that we've enjoyed for 245 years, in the 6,000 years of recorded history, there's never been a nation that's enjoyed more freedom, more prosperity, more blessing. And it came from Romans 13. It was a minister by the name of Jonathan Mayhew. He died in 1766. And they were dealing with King George and the tyranny of England. They were watching with this oppressive taxation and the slavery issue that they had convictions in opposition to, and they had no voice. The king ruled. They were subjects. And Jonathan Mayhew looked at Romans 13, and it says that God appoints all positions of authority, that we're to submit to them, and they're therefore are good. And he declared, when the ruler ceases to do good, he ceases to be the authority. And he coined a phrase that John Adams said started the revolution. Now, he was dead in 1766, but he coined the phrase that lit up the eastern seaboard and inspired the founders. He said, disobedience to tyrants is obedience to God. Now, for my fellow pastors tuning in on live stream or not, you know, some of the congregants or the folks who are struggling with it, remember this. Jonathan Mayhew lived in an oligarchy, a monarchy, excuse me. We live in a constitutional republic. So let's look at Romans 13. All positions of authority are appointed by God. What's the authority in America according to the first three words of the preamble, the Constitution? And who has to be afraid of the authority? Those who would do evil. You see, elected officials govern by our consent. And if they cease to honor, and they don't honor the authority, meaning we the people, and they proceed in that capacity, it also says that there are ministers of justice to execute wrath on those who would do evil. They don't carry the sword in vain. That's why the founders gave us the Second Amendment. Tyrants want you silent. And we have a nation that's bottom up. We the people, they govern by our consent. And so for all the pastors out there who say that you must submit to authority, welcome to the United States of America. We the people are the authority.
So, Rob, I want to close with this question, then we want to do some questions from the audience, because I know that we never get to enough questions here, and Rob will be open to take some questions as well. Rob, what is the potential power of the church? How many churches need to rise up to actually fix this kind of cultural trend? Not politics, but actually fix what we've been seeing. And why hasn't the church done it, and where's the opportunity there?
Yeah, good government only happens with good people. And from the moral law comes civil law. And our founders gave the king, we the people, counselors. Kings need counselors, presidents need a cabinet. They gave us the First Amendment, the freedom of the press, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the freedom to peaceably assemble for right of redress of grievances against the government. Point. The press is to report the truth and the pulpits are to proclaim it. You'll know the truth will set you free. Only a moral people can govern a republic. And the idea is, as it says in 2 Corinthians, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. Liberty is, as Charlie said, is not man's idea, it's God's idea. The pulpits must proclaim it and stand upon it. And if they don't awaken and push back on the tyranny, they will be held liable for the enslavement of humanity while tyranny comes and absolutely eviscerates the most free nation on the face of the earth. 1 in 9 Americans fought in the Revolutionary War. Charlie and I have been looking at the data. If 25% of the churches are willing to defy tyranny, we will stop this juggernaut of socialism.
And so, and I could tell you all tonight, it's happening. When all of you show up, you'd be amazed at how many pastors are saying, wow, the numbers are increasing and things are happening and changing in Arizona. And other pastors from other states are now getting extra resolve and conviction because these movements start to almost take the momentum of the life of their own. And so what's really important to reemphasize about what Rob just said is that it doesn't take 75% or 80%. Just 1 in 4 churches, 1 in 4 pastors that start to speak out against this. So let's think about this. Is Hollywood going to save the country anytime soon? Media, tech companies, is the federal government the only institution that's left that has any sort of organization, that has a claim for truth, that is able to call a crooked line from a straight line, that's able to call good from evil, dark from light, and right from wrong, is the church. And for pastors and the church out there that are a little squeamish or uncertain, this is a call to action and an opportunity. Because I could say personally that if you sit idly by when all of this is happening and you have membership and you have influence, and you're like, oh no, I'm not really gonna comment on those things. What a morally questionable decision, to be perfectly honest. And Rob, what do you have to say about the other pastors that have been doing this? Are you starting to see this trend pick up? Are you seeing more pastors that are speaking out than ever before?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're having service, and this is how I had the privilege to meet you all. We were having service, and I'm thinking I'm the only one. And then it's a Sunday service, second row. There are these really kind of charismatic people in the second row going, go on, come on, come on. And I'm like, where are they from? you know?
Is that Jurgen?
That was Jurgen Matthesius. He comes out with his whole staff. They drove up
Come
from
on.
San Diego.
Come on.
Yeah, come on. That's right.
So
yeah.
good.
They're so good, mate. That's awesome, though, right?
So good, Charlie. So good.
Yeah, baby, yeah. So Jurgen's there, and he goes back the next Sunday, opens his church, and he tells the story about a Marine that had put a gun to his mouth, pulled the trigger, didn't go. Redid it again, didn't go. His father called him, said, let's go to church. He goes, Dad, there's no churches open. He says, I heard of one awaken. They had opened that Sunday. He got saved, brought his girlfriend. She got saved. Dad got saved. And Jurgen says this is happening all over. We've had a 30% increase in overdose and suicides and 300% increase in child abuse in our county alone. This is criminal what they're doing to us. The elderly are dying alone. The abused are quarantined with their abusers. They've shuttered our schools when more kids have drowned in bathtubs and have died from COVID. Listen, there's going to be a lot of variants. And the very last variant of COVID is communism. Fight it.
Amen. So we're going to take some questions here. I want to just emphasize, no public service announcements.
Charlie, can I add this? It's good. You're going to like it. Got a call from the attorney just as it's coming in. Not only did they drop their case against us, they were fining us $3,000 every service, and we had over $300,000 in fines. They dropped that. They offered us $100,000 to go away because we countersued them and we're in a cross complaint. And then today they went and asked it to be dismissed so that they said there's no longer an emergency, yet we're still under emergency orders by the governor, so you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. We're going to win this thing, yeah.
So please no public service announcements. Let's do questions because there's a lot of people that want to say a lot of different things. So just ask a question and make it as short as you can so we can get to as many as possible. We'll start right here. And students get preference. If you're a student, you're able to cut in line. Okay, yes.
My name is Mark Del Maestro. I'm a combat Vietnam veteran.
Thank you for your service.
More than that, I'm an American patriot, but more than that, I believe in God, and I'm not ashamed or afraid to say it. Loud and clear, I believe in God. God chooses the color of our skin, and God chooses if we're a man or a woman, and God chooses our parents, our brothers, and our sisters, and God chooses the nation we are born in. If the Democrats can tell a lie all the time, why can't we tell this simple truth all the time? And take the race card off the table.
Amen. I agree. So I will answer that by saying you're right, and this is really a theological debate that we're in our country right now. We believe that there is a God, and we are not him. They don't believe those things, and we need to reemphasize it. Thank you so much. Next question.
Hi, my name is Joshua. I'm a 6th grader. And I was asking, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur? And what industry do you think conservative people should be focusing on more?
That's going to be like a Christian Jeff Bezos right there.
I want to live long enough to see him president.
First of all, thank you for being here. It's awesome. And 6th grader already thinking that way. So here's a couple pieces of advice when it comes to an entrepreneur, speaking one entrepreneur to the other. If you want to find something to do in the entrepreneurial realm, there's a really simple rule. Go find something everyone is complaining about and go solve their problem. The best entrepreneurs find things that people are complaining about and go solve their problems. Number 2, maybe college is for you, maybe it's not for you. I would argue that maybe taking a gap year before college, you will never have a time where you have more energy, more ability, and more capacity to take risks when you're 18, 19, and 20, and you're not hopefully burdened down by debt, and you could take that risk at that time. Number 3, we do need more entrepreneurs, and for adults out there, please be more supporting and understanding of students and young people that want to take risks and start businesses and want to do things that are not necessarily in the cookie cutter college trajectory. We need more people to start new stuff. And so I want to just encourage you, and I want you to think really big. I want you to enjoy working harder than the people next to you, but never work to satisfy others. Work to glorify the Lord and work to do big and ambitious things that make people's lives better. Remember, solve people's complaints and you'll be very successful. Rob, do you want to piggyback on that?
Hey, Joshua, my dad, when I told him I was going into the ministry, he said, you're not going to be able to provide for your family. It's a waste of time. I went in the ministry and they didn't have anything to do with me. My dad had Alzheimer's. He wasn't speaking. I'm at the home. My mom and my wife are talking. And my dad's looking at me, and I don't talk to him because he has a short-term memory problem. He's gone to be with the Lord, but I turn and I look at him, and he's looking at me. And he says, what do you do? I said, sir, I'm a minister. I'm a pastor of a church. He didn't know who I was. He goes, you know, my son's a minister, and I'm very proud of him. You do what God told you to do. You stay the course, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you.
Next question.
So first of all, I want to thank you, Charlie. My name is Christy Blackman. My husband's Walter, and we
Awesome,
live...
yeah, of course. Great guy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stand up. You're doing a great job, by the way.
Yeah.
You really are. Thank you.
So I want to say a special thanks to you and also to Angel and to Jim Lehman. We have been battling the problem of socialism on the Navajo Nation and the other indigenous reservations for quite some time. They're not even Walt's district, but we feel that God wants us to go out there. Turning Point was the only organization that folied over the dough last year to help us. I'm gonna start crying. And then watching Angel come in with this, this home that they're working on, I just can't thank you guys enough, and I hope you do more of this. And I know I'm supposed to ask a question, but this is a thank you.
That really blessed me, and thank you for saying that. And I also want to say we have some guests here. Jim Lehman and Matt Salmon are here listening tonight, so thank you guys for attending. And I just want to make sure I say thank you for attending tonight. And General McGuire is here as well, so thank you as well. So I might be missing somebody. I just want to say thank you guys for attending, and we need to keep pushing forward. Okay, the next question, yes.
My name's Savannah Padilla, and I have a question for you. What have you learned since being married?
That's a great question. I have learned, as my wife's right here, that the teachings of the Bible are beyond true. When a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing, is what it says in Proverbs. And that is absolutely true. And I've learned a lot. And I've also learned, this is very important for young people out there, that the secular narrative of don't get married, put all this stuff aside, is a bunch of rubbish. It's garbage. And so, still in the newlywed phase, but I could tell you it's been the greatest blessing and adventure and journey. And I just want to encourage and support every young person out there to dismiss all the noise from the secular culture. If you believe you found the right person that you want to be in a covenant with, you don't have to wait till you're 28 and you have all those corporate boxes checked. You don't have to wait till you're 32 and you're like, oh, I'm too young. Obey the Lord and you will be blessed. And I can tell you right now, that's something I've really learned the last couple months. Rob.
Savannah, my son, my youngest, is 19 years old, and he said, Dad, how old do you have to be to get married? Because he's sweet on a girl, and I won't tell you who that is, but everybody knows. He said, how old do you have to be to get married? And I said, son, if I had met your mom when I was 19, I would have married her. Get busy, son. Go get that done. So, when you get past 18, okay? There we go.
So it's been an amazing blessing. How old are you?
10.
What a wise question, and we're so glad you're here. So thank you, Savannah. And a beautiful name, by the way. So thank you. All right.
Hello, my name is Elise. I'm 16.
You have a lot of fans.
Hello. So this is something that God has put on my heart quite a bit recently, and I was wondering if either of you had an answer to it. Sure. So a lot of conservatives and Republicans are people of faith. And while I believe many do reflect that, there are so many that seem to get so wrapped up in their party that they start to act like a Republican rather than a Christian.
Rob, do you want to start with that?
Yeah. It is true I'm a registered Republican. An endangered species in California is the California condor and a conservative Republican. The Republican Party in California spent $1 million against me in a primary. It's a train wreck. Parties are platforms, and they're only as good as the people who participate in them. I'm a Christian before anything else, and I will always be. Now, in a party system, you need to activate and work together. And that party will only be as good as the people who participate. If you're a registered Democrat, make sure that the Democrat Party becomes pro-life. Make sure that they stand for life. Push that. That is one of the most heinous issues on the face of the earth. If you're an independent, provoke them to jealousy as your numbers grow. But whatever you are, this is a participatory government. Join in. I agree with you. Don't put your party above your faith, but make sure your faith moves the party.
And outside of the party side of it, just as a conservative, my day job, no different than plumbers or electricians, is kind of conservative ideas, right? And so at times people can say, Charlie, you care more about that than the kingdom, which is not true. It can appear that way. But also, when it's your job, you want to try to do that thing for the kingdom. So I'm focused on the second most important thing that a human being can contest for. And I also talk about the first thing as well. So the most important thing you can do is to bring souls to Jesus Christ so that they're born new and that they can find eternal life. Now, you might say, well, Charlie, why are you focused on the second thing? What is the second thing? To make sure you can do the first thing. It's pretty important.
80 cents in every dollar in evangelism.
Yeah, and so, for example, there's the type of government you have matters. The type of framework you have matters. We take it kind of sometimes for granted in our country. We wouldn't be able to have Freedom Square in Wuhan. Wouldn't happen. They don't have religious freedom. In fact, China just last week removed thousands of crucifixes and Bibles and burned them publicly, and the church had to go further underground. So that kind of system does really matter a lot. But I do agree with you. If that ever happens and that crosses, that is a problem. But I'll also say, some churches are very even far away from that. Some churches don't comment on the moral issues at all. So it has to be a balance, it has to be a hierarchy. Jesus is the head of the church, right? And that always must remain constant. Thank you so much for that wise question. Thank you.
Hello, Charlie. My name is Chris. My not-so-Christian college is out in Oregon.
Which college? You go to Evergreen State?
Corbin University.
Okay, that's not so Christian.
Yeah, not anymore. But my question for you, so the left is using the vaccine as a symbol of trust, as you mentioned earlier. And so would it be possible to get a bunch of Christian conservatives that have gotten the vaccine like myself to get together and publicly unite against this focus on industries and businesses requiring the vaccine, saying we trust the unvaccinated? Would that work?
Yeah, I mean, please do that, because I think that would actually throw a little bit of a wrench and a curveball into the argument. Yeah, I mean, they kind of just dismiss me as like the unwashed, right? As like the low level of the caste system, because I'm unvaccinated. That's kind of how they trust me. But again, this is beyond whether you're vaccinated or not. This is about power and discrimination and stereotyping and othering. And so you being vaccinated and myself being unvaccinated, guess what? This doesn't make either of us a better person anyway. And how on earth did we ever get to a place in our country where I'm even categorizing us based on our medical status? Do you want to trade? Do you want to trade like our hey, what drugs are you on? Like, have you passed an HIV test? Like, that's really creepy, by the way. Like, we shouldn't do that. It's a really bad idea. And also, maybe I'm not a lawyer, but how does this not violate HIPAA? Like, can someone please explain that to me? Seriously, that healthcare privacy is fundamental. So I think you're onto something. I would love to see a coalition of the vaccinated to protect the unvaccinated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. Next question. My man right here. You attend every event, and you're just an awesome person. I just want to say.
I did miss one. I did miss the one in June.
Well, I don't remember that one. I'm glad you're here, though. Okay.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you. I'm going to make it brief. I've been a fan of heavy rock music since I can remember. And it's insane to see, it's been eye-opening to me since the Trump era, really, to see how many of my favorite musicians, frontmen, guitarists, are blatantly anti-Trump, anti-conservative values, anti-freedom. It's just really strange to see that since I've been into that for a long time. But now people like Eric Clapton are speaking out because he had a very bad reaction to the AstraZeneca vaccine, and he's being shunned by the media and by his fellow musicians. And another example, Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses called his crowd yesterday at a Guns N' Roses concert his fellow political pandemic prisoners. So as people begin to wake up more and more, people begin to speak out in movie industry and in the music industry. My question to both of you really is, do you see potential lockdowns, potential looming lockdowns, completely backfiring no matter what side you're on?
So I think you're on to something. So first, let me just say on rock music, this has been the weirdest thing for me to see. All these people that have made a career of fighting the man and like protesting, like all of a sudden being like, go do everything you're told right now and go be perfectly obedient. It's like, really? Like, you're the ones that are like burning flags and like doing all sorts of weird stuff, right? Like, go obey now and be a good citizen. Like, really? Like, your whole thing is about like pyrotechnics, right? Like, that's not exactly, you know, following the rules. Anyway, so that's been really interesting to see. I mean, I grew up in a society where all the cool people were fighting the orders and the institutions. My body, my choice. Like, now it's all just kind of, that's all gone. So I just find that to be interesting, and no one's ever been able to explain that to me recently. The only explanation that does make sense is their fear of dying. That's the only explanation, is that they're so afraid of dying, they're willing to do things they don't actually believe because all they have is this belief of the momentary world, not a belief in the eternal. That's the only explanation that makes sense. I think you might be onto something, and Rob, I'd love to get your opinion. Just anecdotally, non-data, I'm not seeing people put up with this new reinstitution of mask mandates, and I am not seeing people put up with this new lockdown. I was just in Washington, D.C. yesterday, actually this morning, and at the Reagan airport, just kind of sitting there without a mask, you look around, like half the people are wearing masks until they're like begrudgingly told to put a mask back on. And I think that there is going to be a backlash if they try to lock down the country again. There is. My fear, as I said earlier, if they're trying to provoke a confrontation that will get wild and chaotic to justify an even bigger power response to try to control the uncontrolled citizenry, right? Rob, do you think that people are going to put up with another lockdown?
That's a good question, Charlie.
I struggle with it.
Yeah, because you know they're going to push it towards the military, and they're going to try to separate us and frighten us. And with the vaccination separation, it's interesting to me that we would suspend freedom out of fear of a virus that has a 99.5% survival rate with 70 under with no comorbidities. We would suspend our liberty for that, and yet you look and people are bowing to it. I can't process it. And then the vaccine, for those of you taking it, no judgment on this end, but we have breakthrough, and now you got Delta and Gamma
and Lambda.
In Lambda.
Oh, it's true. They got
Kappa, Lambda, Phi, Mi, Nu, all you know, and
they announced Lambda today. By the way, I don't know if you heard that.
And they're all vaccine resistant. Do you see where this is going? You are a pincushion, and they're making a fortune. Whatever but my point is, when did they get the right to do that to us? And then to muzzle our kids? I will say, I don't have the answer, because the answer lies with each and every one of you.
That's right.
How much are you going to put up with? Because they're going to cause you, it's going to cost you something, and you're going to have to make a decision. You'll lose your job. Write it on the legal pad and find out what the future of your kids and your grandkids is worth as far as liberty's concerned. And if it's temporal, we're in trouble.
And I just want to kind of reemphasize that point. We'll get to the next question. Sorry. Is that, no, it's going to cost you something. And I've always been so clear about that during these events, is I'm not trying to tell you that we can finally win the country back and you can win everything over without possibly having a cost associated. But I can promise you something, is that I can promise you that if you commit to this courageous way of action, you could be the same person in public that you are in private and be free.
Yeah.
That I can promise you, that you don't have to disguise your beliefs and be somebody different at all times. Yes, next question.
How you doing, Charlie? Karl Marx created communism, and the way he did it was through economic communism. Economic communism doesn't work in America because we have a middle class. If we had a poor and a wealthy class, it would be able to push through. But since we have a middle class, it doesn't work. From there, there's another thing called social communism, which we are going through right now with critical race theory. Yes. Social communism is being pushed back by the church and by people in the community as being called racism as what it is. But in an attempt to bring about communism, they are trying to divide people into one or the other. And then in turn, the government comes in and says, we can solve your problems. Now we are moving on to a new one. It's called medical communism, where we are trying and attempting to split people. And in the end, the government will come in and step in and take care of the problem. Operation SHIELD was just released, the outline for it from the CDC. Yes. The end point of Operation SHIELD is camps and sectors. Is there a chance, this is directly for you, that you would be able to come in and speak on the horrors of communism and where we are headed? Because I think for half of us, we understand what communism is because we were either born during it or born at the end of it. The new people, we understand in a way we're trying to save our government, but what are we trying to save it from? Is there a chance that you might be able to bring that up and go through what the horrors that we could be facing down the road are?
Yeah, the answer is yes. You bring up a super smart point. With your permission, I'm going to mention on my show. Is that okay? And you guys can listen every day on AM 960 locally on the radio every day from 9 to 10. I'm totally going to use that because what you just made me realize, which is so obvious, is that this pattern of rich versus poor, of man versus woman, of black versus white, they're trying to start a new class struggle of vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Obviously. Hello, that's so, how did I not realize that? It's so obvious.
The thing is that in order to take control, they have to split.
No, of course, that's
right. And once they split, then the federal government can come in and say, we can take care of all your problems.
So you're right, and that kind of pattern has been used, right? And so now the new one they want is this kind of differing Americas. Now, here's what I just want to say about the unvaccinated issue, which I think they haven't totally thought through. You know who the least vaccinated people in the country are? Black Americans and Hispanic Americans. So they're now going to tell Black Americans, 75% of whom are not vaccinated, you can't go to restaurants in downtown New York City. How's that going to work out, right? I thought the whole arc of this entire narrative was racial justice and Black Lives Matter. But so yes, I'm happy to talk about this. But what I do want to reemphasize, though, and I don't want to get too academic about this, let's put communism and socialism and collectivism. All of these roads lead to one thing, which is authoritarianism. A small group of people having a lot of unchecked power permanently. That's where all of this goes, right? And so we're going to have to get to another question, but I'm happy to talk more about that. You gave me a great point. I want to thank you for that. That was really wise. So thank you.
My name is David Alvarado, and I want to make a couple comments, and then I'll ask my question.
All right, make it quick.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Pastor Rob, for being that gladiator as a pastor. We need more of you. I want to thank you also, Charlie, for basically solidifying in me to run for school board.
Awesome. Where are you running?
I'm going to answer that in a minute. I had this thought in my head about a year ago. I mentioned it to my wife in passing. She laughed at it. We came to the first town square meeting. When you mentioned run for school board, I give her a look. She goes, okay. I put my statement of interest in this week, so I'm officially running. If you're in the Deer Valley Unified School District, I need warriors on the street petitioning for signatures. Now, I wasn't planning on saying that part, but you asked me the question, I answered it.
Yes, that is correct.
I'm a career educator, started in California, came to Arizona. My life's passion has been to educate children. And I hate what's going on. My first language is Spanish. I'm a bilingual Spanish teacher, now considered ELL. And I know God's been just roughing the edges for me. And I know he's building me up for something bigger. And I know, and I'm going to ask publicly because I need a job.
Okay, well.
Because I know we need to work on the Spanish-speaking population with Turning Point USA.
Well, thank you. We'd love to chat with you and connect you through our team. And so
that was my question.
Okay.
I need a job. Can you hire me?
All right.
Thank you.
I love the courage. You see that? That's courage. That's what we need more of. God bless you. That's awesome. We'll chat. I mean that. So, and I do want to mention this on education on the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. Thank you guys for subscribing, by the way, and thank you guys for listening. If you're not yet subscribed, you could take out your phone and type in Charlie Kirk Show and hit subscribe. We have a new partnership. If you want to dive deep into these ideas of American history, Western philosophy, or even Theology 101, we're officially partnering with Hillsdale College, which is a phenomenal school. And if you're for free of charge, if you guys want to help out our show and what we're doing, and also learn and take these amazing online courses that I take every single day for 30 minutes, it's charlieforhillsdale.com. That's charlieforhillsdale.com. You can sign up free of charge. They are awesome classes. Intro to the Constitution, Federalist Papers, where do rights come from, and they have the best American history course for young kids. It's called Land of Hope. It's like 15 courses long. It's like 30 minutes in each course.
It's awesome.
I highly encourage it. charlieforhillsdale.com. You just kind of reminded me of that. Okay, we'll get to the next question.
Hi, my name is Nick. I just moved here from Seattle. Right now it feels like a godforsaken place. And so my question to you is, for me, I felt like I had signs from God to move and that it would be the right decision for me. But would you recommend more people consider leaving the state that they're in if they feel that things aren't being handled well there?
You know, Rob, that's actually a question you get a lot.
Yeah. So more people have left the state of California than came there during the Dust Bowl. People are fleeing California. I could take a survey here. Yeah. How many people came here from California? Raise your hand. There you go. Don't ruin their state. Now, I understand Congressman McClintock said, what could cause someone to leave the beauty of California for the deserts of Nevada and the wastelands of Texas? He said one thing: bad government. And I'm a third-generation Californian. But there are people that have to leave because they can't afford to live there. We have the highest gas tax, sales tax, income tax, corporate tax, everything. We lead in all the worst things. If you were called to something, then go. But if you weren't, stay and fight. Our ancestors that founded this country didn't come looking for gold. They came looking for religious freedom. And they sought what God wanted first, and the rest came later. South America has far more natural resources, but the ones that ended up there were all looking for gold. They established a government that changed the world. Make sure God's telling you what to do. I want to leave California every single day. But I have been called, and no one's going to move me but God. So pick that. Stand.
Beautiful. We can get to a couple more. I know we have a child care deadline, so let's keep them quick. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Devin. I've been a nurse for almost a year, and thank you. My question is, my hospital's mandating the vaccine, and I'm probably going to be jobless not even a year into my career by November. So how would you suggest that nurses fight this?
Yeah, this is, do you work for Anthem? You can't say it. I don't want to put you on the
I don't
spot.
care. Banner.
Banner, yeah. Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, look, it's, this is a really, I get really fired up about this, to be perfectly honest with you, especially when healthcare workers want to say no. Maybe listen to them. I thought we're supposed to trust frontline workers, right? And I want to just say, though, that hospitals are not usually able to sustain a business model without massive government support and intervention, right? Medicaid, Medicare, funding. Where are our leaders standing up to say that our frontline workers should be able to be exempt from this mandatory vaccination? I mean, any sort of leader on the federal level. And also at the state level to a lesser extent. I want to commend you because you've just said out loud that you're willing to stand for truth more than a paycheck. That's a really big deal. And so here's what I'm going to say to the entire world watching out there. There's someone in the healthcare field that owns either a clinic, that owns something that isn't requiring the vaccine. And I want you to repeat your name, and I want them to find you, and I want them to hire you very quickly, because you have courage, and you're going to be a great worker and employee. And I want everyone out there that's here right now to take a second and realize what you just heard. You went to school to become a nurse. You had to go through residency, right? And now you have a job and employment. And now you're saying, I'm willing to be unemployed, but go pursue righteousness. I want all of us to support people like you. Let me say one more thing. And so, whatever you're going to lose, God will bless you as a multiple of that. God will never turn his back on people that stand for righteousness, ever. What is given to the Lord will never be lost, as Rob has said. And if I can ever be personally helpful, seriously, I can send some, just talk to our team after this, because you're exactly why this country has hope. Seriously. Because you have just said what is right is more important than what is easy. What is good is more important than is pleasurable. And you just blessed me by that, because I've said we need more people to actually do that. And so I know some people are saying up front, give me your information. And I can see people giving the little thing there. And Rob, do you want to add on to that? What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Devin Williams.
Devin, were you one of the frontline workers when the pandemic first hit?
I started in November.
Okay, so you were one of our heroes, huh?
Kind of. I work in labor and delivery.
Yeah, but
so
you were one of the heroes.
That's totally
in the front
a hero.
line.
Yeah.
And now we get to punish you by taking your job. When you already survived it, you went through it, and now they're saying you don't have a vaccine, so not only will people employ her, like Charlie said, if you're an attorney, we're looking for attorneys to step up and defend this mess. Pro bono, liberty.
So it doesn't take everybody, it takes somebody. And I want you to rest easy at night saying, you know what, they might fire me, but I'll be free and I'll be blessed by that. America will be saved by courageous stands like
Amen.
you. I'm going to say God bless you for that. It's so awesome. So thank you. All right.
Hi, Mr. Kirk. My name's Josh. I'm an 18-year-old high school student.
Thank you for what high school?
Ironwood High School. It's on 59th
Awesome.
and Thunderbird. Yes,
Great.
sir. So I've been blessed by God to have the ability to play golf at a high level, and I'm looking forward to playing NCAA college golf next year. And unfortunately, the NCAA has had some requirements and restrictions with collegiate athletes. And I've had experiences with talking to certain colleges that colleges have cut communications with me because I'm not vaccinated. And I just wanted to know what I can do moving forward with that, because it's my dream to play college golf, and I really would enjoy doing that, but I'm not going to give up my liberties to go play college golf.
So, hey, Devin, it's not appropriate to ask how old. Let's just say, 20s or early 30s. I just want every person over the age of 50 to really just pray tonight about what kind of country our kids have to grow up in right now. And I know you all know it, I'm not going to lecture about it, but I want you to pray deeply about this, because they're not in the same America you guys grew up in. Not the same America I grew up in. Take an experimental piece of medicine, or you have to uproot your entire life from playing college golf and being a nurse. What? And so God will show all of us what we can do about it in our own personal way. So I don't have an easy answer, but I will say that, again, being on the live stream, there are colleges that will hopefully be able to carve out some exemptions. The problem is the NCAA. So here's what leadership would look like, okay? Is that we need a governor who's gonna say, hey, NCAA, you're not gonna be even close to doing another event in the state of Arizona until you change something like this. We need to start using the political power that has been given from people to start to push back against these institutions, because this is not going to stop. So here you have an 18-year-old. This, as you could tell how much this fires me up, right? It's so wrong. This is so evil. Like, I can't, that you're saying, I want to play golf. I want to do what's right. I won't even be recruited to go play golf unless I take an experimental piece of medicine. So here's the one thing that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to give you hopium. Hope, opium, put it together, make you feel good. It's not good for you. That's your term, by the way. I stole it from Rob.
Didn't seem to work.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say the same thing I said earlier. If you believe it, don't compromise in those beliefs, okay? The Lord will bless you if you stand for righteousness. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. You will be blessed by that. And you're being tried at a young age. You'll become tougher. You'll become better prepared for the future trials to come. And it might be a little bit of a shift from playing college golf in the short term, but you will become a better person because of that. And guess what? All multi-thousand people in this room, we have your back for the decision that you're going to make with this. You are not alone. I want to tell you that again. You are not alone. Rob, do you want to add on to that? You have like 1 minute, so.
What he said.
There you go. And I want to talk to you. I think Lily is here actually. We have a college athlete outreach division at Turning Point USA, and also we are helping students through our anti-mandatory vaccine push with Callie Shackelford from First Liberty, great guy. And I'll tell you a story. University of Notre Dame, I got really fired up about this one. They're making a girl take a vaccine even though she has a medical history that shows that she has adverse events to vaccines, right? She got paralyzed before. And we got the right people involved, alumni and donors, and they backed off. We are now winning some of these legal challenges representing students. So there's a little bit of hope here. So it's not all bad, but I do want to manage expectations. We are losing more than we're winning. Like, they are steamrolling a lot of this stuff. Okay, you will be the final question. And by the way, thank you for being here, and God bless you for your question. You're the final question.
Hey, Charlie. Hey, Rob. My name's Andrew. I work as a paramedic locally. I moved here last year to escape the vaccine mandates, the tyrant that was in charge there, and because God had a different plan for my future. To piggyback off the last question, I moved out here hoping to work as a paramedic, and there's now talk that I may not be able to come into my job if I don't get the vaccine. They may not let me come into the hospital to bring them patients, and they might even come into our stations and ask us our vaccine status. What do you say to us in this position? How do we go about this the proper way, and how do we do it legally without getting ourselves in trouble?
Do you guys see a pattern here? You know, in the 1950s, the final push towards the Civil Rights Act was testimony after testimony. And yes, I'm unafraid to make this comparison. Some people are saying, you can't say that. I will say this. When black people were coming to town halls and they were saying, I can't get a job because of the color of my skin. I can't get a job because of something I can't change. Now they say, well, just get the vaccine, change that. Don't make the medical decision we want. No, that's not how this works, okay? A rights-based argument is nowhere near that. I called this on Tucker Carlson's show 3 weeks ago a very specific term, and people went and lost their mind. Medical apartheid. And that's what's being created. You just heard from 3 20-somethings that are saying, I want to live my life, and I can't. So I want to first talk to the audience. If you've been blessed, and you're currently either retired or you run a successful business, please go find young people like this and support them and pray for them and counsel them and back them. It is so incredibly and critically important. For you, hold the line as long as you possibly can. Seek that kind of mentorship and that guidance. You will be strengthened and fastened in your faith through this trial. And Which paramedic association is it? Which city?
The entirety of Phoenix, kind of the whole area. It's a private ambulance.
So how about the taxpayers in Phoenix? We rise up in record numbers than ever before, and we say that paramedics should not be forced against their will to get an experimental vaccine. I think we should rise up in big numbers to the city council and say that. So those last 3 questions, just so you guys know, and you guys can always email me personally, freedom@charliekirk.com. I know we're over time, Joe. I'm wrapping up, I promise. freedom@charliekirk.com. When people are emailing me, we are getting thousands and thousands of emails like this. We have to push back in record numbers. Rob, I'll let you have the final word.
Foolproof medical exemption. It's called the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary. All of us are going to have to start applying that. It's only a piece of paper unless we stand upon it. Protect this generation. Do your job. And I'm speaking to myself with that finger that I'm pointing. All of us are in this. God bless you.
So to close all this together, just give another round of applause for Rob. How great was Rob tonight, by the way? To tie all this together, what I love about Freedom Square is that every time people are asking different questions, there's different issues that rise up. Do you notice the first Freedom Square? Critical race theory, critical race theory. This one is like vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. That's what makes this sort of assembly so important. So I want to thank you guys for attending, but then circle the calendar in September. I don't think we have a date yet, right, Joe? Not yet. So we will be announcing it. But let's make September, as all of a sudden people are coming back into town, our biggest Freedom Square yet. Because you know what happened tonight? Tonight, there might have been a nurse that might find a job because of this assembly tonight. What happened tonight is you might have an 18-year-old that's going to stand for righteousness, even though there might be a cost associated. What happened is we found out that someone's running for school board organically because of this gathering. This is making a difference locally and nationally. And so this is a government for the people and by the people. We have to start to seize it back. I want all of you to do a couple things. I want you to pray and maybe even fast the next couple days what the Lord is telling you to do about these vaccine mandates. Because those last 3 questions moved me, I'll tell you right now. And I'm a Scot, so I get really emotional really quick. I'm like, oh boy. Number 2, please show up locally and make an impact around these sorts of issues, right? The school board one, August 24th on the Scottsdale side of it. And finally, learn and dig deep about the tools at your disposal about this. Exemptions, the history around it. Become informed and become aware and become involved. So we're gonna see you guys again in September. And everybody, the power is with us. As soon as the people in charge realize there's more of us than there are of them, we are going to win. Time to make sure they hear that message. What a great Freedom Square this was. Thank you again to Dream City. You guys are the absolute best. God bless you guys. We'll see you in September. Thanks so much.